So it's been a while since we last tackled a Contra game, almost 3 years to the day, I believe, since we covered Contra 3 as a one-off. So, hey, why not? Hello everyone and welcome to Let's Play Contra Hardcore for the Sega Genesis. Albeit with 1 to 2 minor tweaks. My lives are up to 3 right now. You can't do up to 10 in the base release. I am playing this game via a fan patch on romhacking.net by Mr. Nemesis that actually restores some things to the Western releases of this game. I'll talk more about the specifics in a moment though, because for right now we need to talk about character selection. In a first for the series, barring Contra Force, which didn't even start development as a Contra game, you can select whichever character of the 4 you want to play as in this. Ray the Human Man is your standard Contra character, medium-sized sprite on the screen, decent weaponry, decent mobility. Sheena the Woman is slightly smaller, but has weapons of pretty comparable power to Ray. Fang the Wolfman is easily the largest character, making him the largest target, but his weapons are both the strongest, but have the shortest range. To the point he's also the only character who lacks a homing weapon. For this LP though, we're going to be playing as Brownie the Robot, who is not only the smallest target, he has easily the best mobility and has easily the most varied attack options in the game that you can get. He is at times rightfully regarded in easy mode, but I just find the game to be the most fun to play with him. Our security system's been breached by an unknown hacker. An unmanned robot is running rampant through the city. I want you to proceed to the area ASAP and restore order. So while Hardcore is the only Contra game on the Genesis, it makes its unique presence pretty well known because this is easily the most chaotic game in the series visually, as every enemy death is a large explosion. Pretty much every character in the game starts with your standard machine gun, but the moment you get your first item pickup, that will change. Speaking of which, let's talk about what this fan patch actually does. Specifically, if you look in the top left, you see 3 red boxes. That is a health bar. You see, while in most Contra games the characters are 1 hit point wonders, in the Japanese release of Hardcore, that was not the case. They were 3 hit point wonders. With that said, the Western releases, be it the American or PAL versions, actively reverted them to 1 hit point wonders. The reason I actively dislike that change and actively reverted it with the fan patch is that you can very much feel with this game as you go through it that it was intended to be played with 3 hit points at a time. Off the top of my head, this fan patch also restores 3 Japan-only cheat codes, which future me will probably be listing on screen, as well as 2 things that I don't think were in the Japanese release. Specifically, it allows you to increase your max lives up to 10 to start, which is more just for the LP measure, as well as allowing 2 players in co-op to select the same character. With that said, because of that, I do believe there's one thing that's not in this fan patch that's in the original Japanese release, namely, this game actively has cutscenes as we saw a moment ago. In the Japanese release, depending on which character Player 1 and Player 2 chose, there would be unique character interactions, so Ray and Sheena would have different dialogue with each other than, say, Ray and Brownie. Not that that matters because this is a single-player LP. So already we've gained 3 weapon options for Brownie, namely his A and D type weapons alongside a bomb. The bombs are just outright screen nukes. Every character's A-type weapon replaces their basic machine gun, but if you die while using a weapon, you do lose it until you collect another power-up of that type on another life. So say if I actively die using weapon A, I'll go back to the basic machine gun until I collect another A power-up. Also worth noting, there's a Shot 2 icon above my health meter. This game allows you to swap between a fixed or moving shot type a la Gunstar Heroes on the fly. In the Shot Type 1 mode, you can shoot while moving simultaneously like in classic Contra, while in the Shot Type 2 you are locked in place while firing. You swap between the 2 modes with one of the 3 face buttons on the Genesis controller that you can select via the options menu, and mastering swapping can do a lot for your survivability. With that said, worth noting the swap mode button for your firing type is the same as your swap weapon button, and you can only swap your firing types while actually firing. So playing this game well with or without playing a version with a health bar requires some very on-the-fly thinking and quick responses. This actively leads into why I'm using the fan patch to restore the health bar, because I know some purists don't like doing that. I find the Western release of Contra Hardcore to be the most difficult and unforgiving game in the series. But when played with a health bar, as the game was originally designed to have, you have some really nice leeway. You can get away with some really fast-paced action plays.
That's not the unmanned robot. Somebody's inside that thing.
I've said in the past I don't like modding games too much for my playthroughs. In fact, usually I just stop at fan translations so I can play them in a language I understand. Like right now, though, I make exceptions in the case the game's difficulty or design was altered too much by the Western release, like in Ninja Gaiden 3 or Castlevania 3. With that said, while I ignored the stage's 2 mini-bosses, it's time for our first full boss, the Powered Ninja Murasame. Early in the fight, it will either fire its machine guns at you, or jump around and stomp the floor. Most characters have to duck under the machine gun fire, but because Brownie's so short, you can just stand underneath it. After enough damage, you'll enter phase 2, where the Murasame can separate its upper body and spin like a propeller, sending it spinning across the screen. Or it can directly charge at you as well, as we saw, but as you see, that phase dies pretty quickly with this attack set.
What? Or who are you? You can call me Deadeye Joe. If you want to know more than that, then come and get me. The research center is under attack by an unknown group. Please come and help. Damn, what should I do?
So something that makes Contra Hardcore very unique is that you actively have several choices you'll make across the campaign that will completely change your trajectory and put you into either new stages or on the tracks for different endings. In this LP, I'm going to be showcasing every stage at least once, as well as every single ending and what choices lead you where. I'm going to start off by heading after Deadeye Joe. While we get into this stage 2, worth noting, if you're ever in a tight spot in this game and you're about to get hit by an attack, you might not be out of luck. You see, every character in this game has the ability to slide in most stages by pressing down on the jump button. While sliding, every character is invulnerable, so you can use it to either clip through some enemies to get out of a tight situation, or at least clip through their attacks. I believe it also damages enemies a la Gunstar Heroes, but unlike that game, I don't recommend using it for that, especially if you're playing versions of the game with 1 hit point wonders, as you're liable to get into some really dumb deaths doing that. Coming up here in this tunnel, we have a spider bot mini-boss, which is going to move from the ceiling to the walls to the floors, either stabbing the floors with its claws, firing some projectiles that pace out from the bottom left of the screen you just need to jump over, or firing some projectiles that bounce along the road in a couple different positions from the bottom right of the screen. For most of this fight, I recommend firing mode 2, as you can just find some good safe spots and take advantage of the fact it doesn't move too much itself. At this point, let's talk Brownie's active weapon types. His A-type weapon that replaces the machine gun is the Victory Laser, which is a faster, arrow-shaped projectile that does more damage. It also pierces through everything, allowing you to hit multiple targets, as well as hit enemies behind guards. It does sweep and track with your movements as you rotate the gun though, so in some cases if there's an enemy coming from behind or above, it's a little bit slower unless you actively stop firing and readjust where you're aiming first. His B-type weapon is the Gemini Scatter, which is somewhat similar to the Windmill Shuriken from certain Ninja Gaiden games. You fire it and it will return back to you after a moment, potentially hitting enemies on the return trip. If you also jump over it or adjust your position, you can game the return arc to hit some oddly placed foes as well. This is probably my favorite weapon of Brownie's at large because it's fast but also hits really hard. Brownie's C-type weapon is the EM Yo-Yo, which causes you to throw out a yo-yo that'll track onto enemies as long as you're holding down the button. The yo-yo looks awkward to use, and against multiple enemies, its homing can be rather ineffective and indecisive, but against single targets, this thing melts through enemy HP, as it hits faster than any other weapon in the game off the top of my head, as long as it's on target. Technically speaking, some of Fang's weapons are higher damage, but the damage per second with the EM Yo-Yo might be the highest in the game. Finally, Brownie's D-type weapon is the Shield Chaser, which is like a shield weapon from Mega Man. You press the button, you bring up a shield of orbs that will protect you from incoming fire or damage enemies if you touch them with it. But if you let go of the button, they'll automatically all home in on the nearest target, which can really melt through some enemy HP from a distance if you're trying to play a little defensively. Outside of his smaller size and general mobility with his double jump, the main reason I actively like playing as Brownie is I just find all of his weapons to be really versatile in most uses and can really just melt through enemy HP if you know how to use them right. Boss of this particular stage 2 is the Swift Pursuit robot, which in phase 1 can swing at you with its arms from a long distance, attempt to jump and stomp on you, or fire mines that sweep across the screen creating large explosions. Phase 2 here comes by really quickly though, which can only attempt to pogo onto you rather awkwardly. If you reach this phase, you've pretty much won the fight.
You can't get away now. Give yourself up. You fool. I'm nothing more than a decoy. By this time, my friends have arrived at the research center and have gotten their hands on the alien cell. Alien cell? Now begins the true horror. Damn, he blew himself up.
That version of Stage 2 isn't too bad, it just doesn't have too much going on in it, hence why I don't really prefer it. Mind you, I'm not a big fan of either Stage 2 thinking about it, to be fair. 3 days later. We've identified the hacker who breached our security. His name is Neumann Cascade. He's the best hacker on the net. He used the panic caused by the robot as a diversion so he could steal the mother alien cell from the research center. It's very likely there's an organization working behind him. His hideout is under a garbage dump. Don't screw this one up. Worth noting, while we've seen that there are choices in this game that'll actively change which route you go on and what stages you can access, stages 1, 3, and 4 are the same no matter which route you choose in the game, so if you went to the other stage 2, you still end up at this stage 3. This stage is a little unique compared to everything else in the game because there actively is a secret within it, but we'll talk more about that in a few moments. In the meanwhile, though, I might as well talk about my history of the game. I've played this game several times over the years, but if memory serves, this is a game I first found out about by scrolling through ROMs lists on like OK ROMs and Cool ROMs back in the day. And I saw this game in the lists, knew I liked Contra, and gave it a shot. I only got a couple of stages deep though at the time because Not for nothing, like I said, this is probably the hardest Contra game in the series if you're playing a version that doesn't have the health bar. And on top of that, just because of the multiple shot types and being able to swap whether or not you are in a fixed or movement shot type, this is probably also one of the most complicated Contra games to learn to play well. If memory serves, I didn't beat this game until about 2 years later, I want to say, maybe 3. There's quite a few parts of this game I didn't quite vibe with at the time, but as I've played it through more and more, I've just gotten more and more used to it and actively accepted that this is just a really unique game. Also, it probably has my favorite soundtrack out of the classic Contras. So progress is through that door there, but if you climb up this wall, you can find this guy. Hey you, want to make some money in the battle arena? This guy will now give us a choice between giving it a try or forgetting about it. Forgetting about it just puts you back down on the previous screen and you can progress with that prior stage. Accepting it, though, puts us into this game's secret stage, the Battle Arena. This is a brief boss rush of 3 bosses with relatively lower health. Starting off here with one of my favorite variants of Vampire Killer, we have Simondo Belmont, whose only attacks are doing a whip attack and throwing a piece of taiyaki like it's the cross boomerang. Staying up on the ceiling here actively keeps you very safe, which is actively a thing I forgot to mention. You can also climb walls and ceilings in this game in a way that's very reminiscent of Contra 3 as well as the later classic Ninja Gaidens. Taking advantage of that is not required in a lot of bosses, but it can definitely help you get around certain attacks in more closed-in rooms like this. With that said, the slide also lets you get around them in very similar ways. It just depends on what the attack is. Just worth noting that no matter what you're doing, if you're on a wall or a ceiling, you're counted as being technically in shot type 2. You cannot fire and move at the same time while clinging to a wall or climbing along a ceiling. Next up here is the Psycho Mother, who's got 3 attacks. Her baby can come out and try to grab you. She can fire homing projectiles out of the cannon on the carriage. And when the baby's down, as well as when the turret's down, her only other response is to try and ram you with the carriage. But if you're higher up the wall, she literally cannot touch you. Coming up is the third of the 3 fights in this battle arena. This is going to be the huge face, who's probably the hardest fight here, but honestly, all 3 of these fights are pretty easy. This guy is going to either roam around the screen wildly, bouncing off the walls, or teleport back and forth around places while either firing homing missiles at you or shooting an orb at a surface that will then expand across the entirety of that surface. If you wait for him to fire it off at the floor and then jump up to the walls, you're going to be completely safe. And the battle arena is done.
Curses! The interdimensional portal is still open! Ouch! It looks like somehow we've gone back through time.
Several years passed before. You know, I've seen a lot of joke endings in game history. This is definitely up there as one of the sillier ones. This is the first of the 6 endings in the game you can actively get, as you can get it very early compared to any of the other ones. Every ending in the game has its own credit sequence and song, as well as a post-ending image too. But since each ending plays the full credit sequence, what I'm going to do for the sake of keeping commentary fresh is be silent through the credits until we see our final credits roll. So I'll see you in a few moments. At the end of every ending, they also show you your total score for that playthrough. Just because that's also the shortest ending to get, that's also going to be the one where you have the lowest score. At this point, though, we're starting playthrough 2 and jumping back to where that wall we climbed was to reach the battle arena, and shooting through the door instead to reach the actual boss fight for stage 3.
You're that creep Neumann Cascade!
Why don't you try this on for size?
Where in the heck am I?
Welcome to the virtual zone. I hope you enjoy yourself. Neumann's one of the weirder bosses in the game just because each phase is an entirely different boss fight. We have the death horoscopes here, starting off with Ares. Ares sticks towards the top of the screen, charging up every now and then to do a dash downwards towards your side of the screen, trying to hit you along the way, but as you can see, he doesn't have much health. Phase 2 is going to be against Sagittarius, who will patrol the top half of the screen and occasionally shoot a homing arrow with his bow. With that said, pretty much every projectile in the game can destroy it pretty easily, so it's not really much of a threat, especially if you use a homing projectile or one that has just a very fast rate of fire, which, not for nothing, pretty much every weapon in the game does. Phase 3 is against Gemini. Gemini has the twin halves orbit around each other in a bit of an awkward pattern across the room, occasionally charging up for a big projectile that they fire at the floor that will then bounce up into the air, raining down at random parts of the screen. It can be very easy to lose track of where you are and all that, which is why I actively recommend during this attack to focus on using shot mode 2 and just aiming up diagonally, moving up whenever you see a projectile get above you. Now we're on to Neumann himself. You fight well, fool. Let's see if you can handle this. Neumann takes the form of the Square Terror for his boss fight, which is 3 other distinct phases that do individual things. Starting off, we have the Square form, which just throws Tetraminos at you, T-squares that'll bounce around at you and all that jazz. It does attempt to crush you in some cases, but it goes by pretty quick. Phase 2 is a tank that's going to patrol the bottom right side of the screen back and forth, occasionally firing a projectile out of its cannon. With that said, if you duck with any character, it's pretty easy to avoid this, but as usual, Brownie's size really gives him an advantage there. Finally, Phase 3 is a helicopter that's going to patrol the top half of the screen. When it attacks, it stops at either the extreme left or right of the screen. It will drop various panels out of the bottom itself while firing its propeller at you in a bit of an awkward angle to try and catch you off guard. Jumping over the propeller and then firing away is your best strategy there. Helming projectiles in general, just really good for this fight, as you can see.
It looks like it's game over for you!
Don't hurt me. I'm just trying to make a buck. It's not personal.
You can save yourself, sir, for the people at headquarters.
And that's stage 3 in total. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 2, we're going to go after stage 4 beyond and hopefully reach our next ending in the process. See you guys then.